Hello, my beautiful co-creators. Lilu here. Today I'm in Colorado on the Juicy Living Tour in Lyons with Janet Quinn. Hello.
Hello, Lilo. Thank you so much for coming to beautiful Lyons.
This is exciting. We're in the middle of the mountains. There's snow everywhere. This is really beautiful, beautiful place. Really, I feel really connected with nature here.
Yeah. It really is. This is why I came out here, moved out into the boondocks. I grew up in the city, Brooklyn, New York.
Oh.
And by way of South Carolina, ended up in Colorado and lived in Boulder for a long time. And then really needed this kind of connection to the trees and the mountains. And didn't count on the connection to the rattlesnakes, but bless them as well. They live here too. And so deer and elk and all kinds of creatures. So it's beautiful to live here.
So I'm very grateful for this connection because we connected through Barbara Dossey that I've interviewed over in Santa Fe, and that is into holistic nursing, that wrote many, many books. And you're both in the same field and have an open heart for this field and have a perception on healing that is really, it's needed to be shared right now with as many people as possible, I feel. So tell us about your background, just so that we can all know and understand a little bit your own journey to get to this place where you're at now.
Yeah, I'm a nurse with a PhD from New York University in nursing research and theory development. I think if there is such a thing as a reincarnation, which I don't know if there is or not, I'm agnostic about it, but I've probably been a nurse like every lifetime. It's just what I feel like I came to do. And so I've been doing that for a really long time. My research area was in something called therapeutic touch, which is an approach to healing that uses the human energy field and intentionality to facilitate healing. And so I've done studies on that, and I've taught that and practiced it for many, many years. So that was kind of my beginning, and Barbara and I met each other back in the 1970s when holistic nursing was just being born, this idea that human beings are not just the sum of the parts, that they're more than, different from the sum of the parts, and that you can't understand the whole person by analyzing the particular parts. There's a way of looking that's a holistic way of looking. And at that time, the model in medicine, and it remains to be, by and large, a very mechanistic model, which really takes the human being and reduces them to the status of a machine, and then reduces the machine, reduces the human person to the status of the body. So a human being is the body, and then reduces the body to the status of a machine. And so then our job is, well, just figure out what's broken in the machine and fix it. I mean, it's as simple as that. We see it just as simple as that. And we know now, I mean, that's a ridiculous model, but if you look at the way that healthcare is delivered, it's often in the same model. So you have the heart unit, and you have the brain unit, and you have the bone unit, and so you go into the system, and you're subdivided into the parts again. I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of consciousness, so that we really get it, that the mind has something to do with this. Mm-hmm. And for me, the exact percentage of that remains a part of the mystery. So we know that our thoughts, our consciousness impact our physiology. There's no separation, in fact, between our mind and our body. That's an illusion. That there's some place that the mind is located other than in the very fabric of our being. We've learned through psychoneuroimmunology that there are receptor sites, like little locks on cells everywhere in your body waiting for chemicals that are produced in your brain to fit those locks. It used to be thought it was all in the brain, but it's everywhere. So the brain is literally everywhere in your body. No place your brain isn't.
So you're saying that each cell has its own brain?
Each cell has an openness. Each cell has a little spot on it that's sitting there saying, I'm open. If you want to send me some brain juice, I'm here. I'll take it. Those are called receptor sites. Okay. And so when these chemicals are produced in the brain, these receptor sites in cells everywhere in your body can receive those chemicals. So it's not just happening in the brain. So what it means is a different thought is a different body. Because the moment that you have a different thought, there are these neurotransmitters and neuropeptides that are released, and cells everywhere in your body pick them up, and you have a new body. In that moment, that fast. We used to think it all happened just in the brain. So much has happened over these years from the 70s in our understanding of how the mind and the body are connected. the piece that's still, from a healthcare point of view, almost not even acknowledged, but slowly being at least looked at sideways, is the spirit. Mm-hmm. So holistic nurses have known this for forever. I mean, that's where we started back in the 70s, was to say the human being is mind, body, spirit, not mind and body and spirit, not plus, but mind, body, spirit. Mm-hmm. Because here's the question again. Okay, so we say we're mind, body, and spirit. But where do we think the spirit is? I mean, what are we talking about when we say that? Do you think the spirit is kind of like tucked in some little pocket somewhere up behind your adrenal glands? Or like, if you dissected the person, where would you find it? Well, if we just think about it, it's an absurd idea, right? And we act that way as if it doesn't exist, or as if it can be separated. So we say, well, whole person, body, mind, and spirit. Okay, so for the body, we'll get the body doctors, and for the mind, if you've really got a problem, we'll get the head doctors. Yeah. They're often located in another whole building down the road and around the bend, the psychiatric hospital. And then we'll call the chaplain in to do something with whatever this thing is called the spirit. Yeah. So although intuitively we really get it, how do you separate those things? We still live in a world, in healthcare anyway, that continues to treat those as if they're aspects that could be separated, and that they don't really intersect, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you see. Yeah. But it's shifting, I think, and I think that the holistic nurses, we have been really talking about this and teaching this way for a really long time. And now
Florence Nightingale was really the one that nailed it, huh?
Florence Nightingale, as you know from talking to Barbie Dossi, who, again, we bowed to Barbie, who is our resident in nursing, our resident Nightingale scholar. Was so completely clear about healing, for example. It's like, what is healing and who does the healing? Those are the questions I've been engaging all of my professional life, is what is healing? Who or what is the healer? Yeah. And then how do we facilitate healing? Mm-hmm. And so who or what is the healer? Nightingale was perfectly clear that the healer is the one that's doing the healing. With sometimes the assistance of drugs, medicine, surgeries, but that the drugs are not the cause of healing. The cause of healing, Nightingale would say, is nature itself. Only nature can heal, meaning the innate natural capacity. Or Nightingale was completely connected to God. I mean, her idea of nature, she spelled nature with a capital N, because it was not just creation, but creator. Mm-hmm. That Nightingale was completely in alignment with, attuned with, studied about, driven by, in love with. Yeah. So she really helped us to see that we have an arrogance in the Western healthcare system in particular to think that we're the healers. Mm-hmm. The same arrogance is carried over into some of the what we call alternative and complementary therapies, and into some kinds of New Age thinking. The notion that we go to the healer who has the latest approach to healing and the latest skills and knows how to move. Boy, they move energy better than anybody we've ever met. So they'll be the healer, and we go to them and they do whatever they do and then say, "Oh, he healed," know. But it's the same mistake, and this is what I really like to help people see. We've criticized mainstream medicine by saying, "Oh, they're just simple cause and effect," and they're giving all these pills and then thinking that's the cure. But if you just substitute a different tool and say, "Well, we're going to use acupuncture, or we're going to use energy healing, or we're going to use Reiki, or whatever it is," mm-hmm. and then it's the same way of thinking, simple cause, simple effect, and it's what's being done to the person. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you haven't shifted paradigm at that point. Mm-hmm. You've just shifted tools. Mm-hmm. And there may be more natural tools, but that's no more holistic a way to practice than mainstream medicine, which says, "Oh, got a symptom, take a pill. Mm-hmm. Oh, got a headache, here's the acupressure point." Nothing holistic about that. Mm-hmm. Same model. So, interesting. Yeah, when I think about healing, and it's absorbed my thinking for all of my career. Would you like me to share the burden of the microphone? How are you doing with that? Since you have the dog, we didn't introduce. I love it. We didn't introduce Abigail, but this is my little love machine. She's just a complete. She's like a bodhisattva, the bodhisattva in the Buddhist tradition that just wants every sentient being, every living thing to come into enlightenment. Abigail wants everybody to feel loved. That's her job. And so she goes around and spreads love. And so each person that comes in, she greets them as if they are like she's been waiting for them her whole life. She runs to people and greets them, and then will lick them silly if they don't stop her. So
lovely.
She's so happy that she gets to sit in your lap. It's her favorite place is a lap. So
But the microphone is great, and I'm really fascinated about what you're talking about, and I think there's many application for everybody listening right now in our own life, because it's taking the conversation not just of healing to a new level, but of life and who we are in this universe, and how by being more in the present moment, you're saying we can have nature or God be part of this life and make it really magical and surreal at times. You probably have been very, not shocked, but surprised at those healing that have happened.
I would say I've been stunned sometimes by what I can see happens. And for me, what it creates is absolute awe. And what I recognize in those moments when you really see healing happening is that I'm in the presence of mystery. And for all of our theories and all of our ideas and the way we try to get our mind wrapped around things, there is something at the heart of healing which is fundamentally mysterious, and it is beyond our manipulation and control. It's open to our participation. It's open to our conscious participation, but it is beyond our manipulation and control. And that is a hard pill, to stick with the metaphors, for some of us to swallow. It's the mistake, I feel, my opinion, that's been made by so much of kind of popular healing dialogue and some New Age thinkers. There's such an emphasis on being in control, on manifesting, you can do this, you can heal yourself, you're in charge of this. And I think it's great for people to be as involved and engaged and use all the possibilities. But there is that doorway that is labeled mystery, and you can't have it. And you can't control it. It's not yours to manipulate. And so this is what I really like to offer people, is yes, we participate in this. Do what you feel called and guided to do. So first thing you have to do is discern, right? Well, what am I called to in this particular situation? What's trying to emerge here? What's my best sense of what's trying to emerge? How can I facilitate that? This is what my whole kind of theory of healing actually is, that our job, since we're not the healer, since our job is to facilitate the emergence of healing, not to lay healing on somebody, but to find out how we can draw that forth. And this is what Nightingale said, is what our job is to put the person in the best conditions so that nature can act on him. My way of thinking about it is that within every living system, there's something that I call the Heylin Response, or the Heylin Effect, H-A-E-L-A-N, and that word means to be or to become whole. And how I look at it is that the Heylin Effect is the totality, the organismic response, always in the direction of increasing integration and transcendence, always in the direction of increasing wholeness. That impulse towards integration, transcendence, towards wholeness is hardwired into every cell of your being. She says, there's a car and I need to protect you all because someone might come in. So this tendency towards wholeness, hardwired into billions of years of evolution, this tendency towards integration, towards transcendence. In healthcare, and particularly in healthcare research, they label that the placebo effect, and they try to get rid of it. It's a problem, because if you're trying to figure out if a drug works, you got to get rid of that darn self-healing thing. Because how do you know if it's the self-healing or the drug? Yeah. So we're organized around trying to get rid of that so we can see what the real healing is. My idea is the real healing is always what this system is doing. And I call that the Heylin Effect, and I see that my job is to help this person elicit the Heylin Effect, the Heylin Response, the natural organic healing response. The last thing I'll say about that, well, probably not the last thing, because you might ask me another question, but to be really clear, sometimes that response is death. So when we're in a model that's all about fixing and curing, even whether that's a medical model or whether it's a New Age model or any other kind of alternative and complementary therapy, if the focus is still around fixing the system and curing it, then we think of death as a failure. The fact is that death is simply integration and transcendence into yet the next form. So why I love to practice out of a model that's about healing is that there is no end to the possibility for healing, up to and including the very moment that people die, and beyond that. So that sometimes the most profound healing that you see in people is while they're dying.
Yeah.
Profound healing at many, many levels. Even though the body is letting go, the healing continues at the emotional level, at the spiritual level, and at levels that we do not have access to.
Yeah, it's interesting too to see, and I've heard a few times some people say that there was such a point in their life where they really thought they would die, and then from that space something else emerged. What do you have to say about that? When you just arrive in life to such a point where only dying seems to be the answer, but within this dying there is a life force that just seems to emerge out of it, and a new beginning can start. I mean, it's a strange relationship, because you don't really want to advise people just go for dying, because what's the dynamic there?
You don't advise people to go for dying, because of course, what does that mean? You know how to do that. It's the willingness to open to the truth of whatever's trying to unfold in your being at this particular point in time and space. And to be humble in its presence, to recognize that there may well be levels even in your own being, in fact not even in, absolutely in your own being, that you actually don't know about, that you actually don't have access to. That's not altogether bad. The ego hates that, because the part of us that's the separate self, little self, ego self, really does think it's in charge of everything, and that it is what your life is about. And if it dies, you're dead. Well, the point of every spiritual tradition, or what every spiritual tradition tells us across all of the world's traditions, is that the price of access to the divine is the undoing of the control of the ego self, the little self. And the little ego self will masquerade as the divine very happily. As the one that's in charge. Oh, I'm giving you guidance. I'm in, So this to kind of try to wrap this into your question. No, we don't advise people go towards death. It's that from my point of view, when I work with people, it's how do we create a space in which you can sit with what's happening and really open to the truth of it. That's what I would say, open to the truth of it. And then discern what you feel called to do, so that you may well feel called to do absolutely everything in your power. Let's say you've gotten some terrible diagnosis, or we want to talk about it that way. So you discern, what am I called to in response to this? It's different than this question that people like to ask is, what did I do to create this? It's a horrible question. It's a terrible, terrible question.
Of guilt and fear.
Shame and, oh my gosh, I failed. It's like, there are aspects of life that we can control and we know are related to our health. We know this. But again, there's also a mystery about each person's incarnation here, to which we're not privy. So the question, how did I create this, can be so destructive, because it can end up having people feel guilty and feel ashamed. Now, it's a great question when people ask that question and then get really engaged in, okay, well then I'm going to fix that. And they do all that. And then actually, let's say it's cancer, there's a remission. And you say, see how powerful we are. We can heal ourselves. I have healed myself. And I think that's beautiful experience, and blessed be. In my practice, then, I have seen too many people in the next few years where there's a recurrence. And so when they come then, they come not only with the bad news for themselves, oh, it's a recurrence and now it's stage 4 and, whatever. But I failed. I did something wrong. And so now you get to die feeling like a failure. So here's the bottom line in terms of death and all of it and healing. We are all going to die. The Sufis love to say, you have a certain number of breaths. You don't know how many. So that's out of your control. So we're all going to die. The question is, how do we want to die? Do we want to die healed? Or do we want to die unhealed? And that's really why a model that is about healing as very different than curing is so powerful. Because we can really offer something of absolute truth and goodness and beauty to the person whose body is not going to remain, in this world. Is that making sense,
Yeah.
Lulu?
So what is the question that somebody that is diagnosed, with an illness, with a deadly illness, if that's a way to put it, what kind of question can then we ask ourselves then to open that so that something else new is possible? I mean, if we're not, I don't know how to express this. This is a very strong. But how can we be in a place of humility in front of this life force where something new can emerge then? What are some of the questions, or how can we be in front of such a diagnosis? Or
I think it's such a beautiful question, and so we can use a very gentle process called inquiry, which is really a process of just noticing what's arising. And so you bring yourself into this and you allow yourself to have what is your moment-to-moment truth with it. So maybe the very first, if this is what's happened, you've got some terrible diagnosis, then you allow what's arising about that to arise. So if the first responses are shock, you allow that. And so you keep allowing what's arising, and allow that arising to keep bringing you to deeper and deeper and deeper truth over time. It's very helpful to have somebody to walk that way with, that can help you stay with your own process and your own knowing, because what happens so often is the panic and the fear activates us, and then we get very busy, and all of which it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's no judgment about any of it. It's just choices. How do we want to do it? And so, but I think the question is, in each of those moments, what am I called to in this moment?
Hello.
What am I called to in this moment? Am I called to stand up and stretch? Am I called to give a kiss? What am I called to? Am I called to get very, very activated? Am I called to get quiet? But this kind of listening consciousness, that's one way to think about it, I think. Did that make sense? Is that clear?
But it seems like there must be such a moment of fear and of panic and a fear of death and a fear of the darkness and a fear of letting go and all of that. It must be so challenging as a nurse too to accompany or be with somebody going through that, or to give them advice so that they can open up to, I guess, to the light, or to knowing that death is not an end in itself. And I mean, wow.
Yeah. Well, where you start is with wherever the person is. And that's wherever, and so it has to be also with wherever I am, and so it's not about, like, again, there's some strategies that say don't let any negative thinking in. The moment you hear this, you have to turn it around, you have to see it, you have to see yourself cured. All of that is great when it works, but my experience is that's not always the way it goes. So you have to allow people to have their truth. And when we're saying, I'm only going to have positive thoughts, if what's arising are positive thoughts, yes. But if what that means is I'm not going to allow the fullness of my experience in this moment, which includes all of my fear, all of my stories, all of my grief, if I won't allow that, I'm contracting. And at this very moment is an invitation to open, like a flower, to open the petals and to hold with great tenderness, what one finds there. So
Same then in life then, really. So that life force can flow through us and guide us and be part of this life. Otherwise, yeah, I could feel the contraction when you say that. Yeah. Otherwise it blocks the energy from flowing and things from happening and miracles to happen.
It does, and the miracles, again, it's mystery, and our attempts to control them and to make them can be the very thing that actually blocks the flow. So there are, it's so many of the simple answers are really the ego's answers because it's so much more comfortable. I mean, we would so much rather believe that we are in control of all of it. It's so much more comfortable and less scary because then if I'm in control of it, I can do whatever. Just tell me what I have to do. I'll do it. I think this is why the spiritual wisdom of all of the world's traditions, every one of them, when you study them deeply, offers some way to break the grip or the grasp of the small self that thinks it's separate, to kind of loosen the grasp of that on your being, if you want to call it, on your soul, because that's humanity. That's what we do. It's the human condition to think that we're separate from the divine, from ultimate reality, from the ground of being, whatever language we want to use. But every spiritual tradition, this is the absolute brilliance of the Perennial Wisdom, which I'm totally in love with the Perennial Wisdom. I'm like, that is my absolute joy. And what is the joy? The joy is that in what is called the Perennial Wisdom, which is, we can think of it as the wisdom that is the source of all of the world's religious traditions. So you think of it as this great depth, this well of groundwater that's infinite. And you can think of all of the world's religions as trees of all different sorts. So you have oak trees, and you have aspen trees, and you have willow trees, and you have peach trees, and you have so many kinds of trees. Now, you can spend your life studying the differences between the trees. You can say, oh, well, oak trees have this kind of leaf, and peach trees have these kinds of leaves, and they produce this kind of fruit. And you could have a wonderful time really understanding the differences between them all. And that's actually interfaith dialogue. Interreligious. If we talk about the tradition, say, oh, you show me your beliefs, I'll show you mine. You show me your leaves, I'll show you mine. And you can stay there. There will never be religious unity at that level. No. Because no matter how much you want to say, oh, a tree is a tree, a tree is not a tree. An oak tree is not a palm tree. Yeah. So looking for where are we going to find healing, now this is another kind of branching into something else, where do we find healing of the across religious traditions? It's not at the level of the particular teachings of each of those. So where is it? Well, each of those trees has only one source in terms of nourishment. It must have roots deep enough to find water. And so we can think about this perennial wisdom as the mystic heart, was Wayne Teasdale's language, of all of the world's traditions. This deep wisdom that millions, this is what I love, Lilu, that millions, maybe billions of our brothers and sisters, our ancestors, from every place on the planet, from every walk of life, they, through their struggle, just like you and I are sitting here saying, but how is this and what, and how could we possibly, and how do we know? To think that all of our ancestors, all the way back, bit by bit, sat with these questions, sat with this innate longing to know and to be and to experience the true, the good, the beautiful. This profound longing in the depth of the human soul. And so the religious traditions and the wisdom that has come from them, that's called the Perennial Wisdom, is our inheritance from that struggle. It belongs to us. It's like the precious gems that our grandmothers and grandfathers have passed down, But how come we haven't passed that in any better way, though? Because it seems like we're relearning, and our ancestor knew much more than we know now.
or most of us know now. So it's surprising to see that it hasn't been transmitted to us in a more powerful way, or that we have been born in such a... I mean, right now we seem to be at the lowest of our consciousness that we've ever been, or close to it, at least on a general universal level, no?
It can look that way, but one thing to be just aware of is that looks are deceiving, and things are not always what they seem, because the evolutionary thrust only goes one way. It doesn't go backwards. It only goes towards increasing integration and transcendence, increasing complexity and transcendence. That's the whole direction of the evolutionary impulse. So if it looks like consciousness is as low as it can be, something else is going on. Like, that's what it looks like. But some of us, I know you are one of them, would trust that there must be something else underneath that's trying to emerge, that is in fact bringing this whole evolutionary thrust towards increasing integration and transcendence. It's really, there's a whole theory that comes out of physics that talks about dissipative structures. It talks about, this is Prigoghine's framework, that when systems get very far from equilibrium, so not, instead of nice and easy, really, really shook up, at that moment, right, there can be this great leap.
Yeah. So it's non-linear anyway.
It is not linear. And I think it does require each of us to keep finding that connection to source that our ancestors spoke about. And here's another response to your question, like, well, how come it didn't get passed down? We are living in such an extraordinary time. So yeah, on one side, there's all of this that looks terrible. But this is the first time in our experience as human beings on this planet that we have access to the actual scriptures and teachings of all the world's traditions. It's never happened before. We're the first folks that actually have access. I have a DVD upstairs in my office that has all of the sacred scriptures from the world on it. How is that? Imagine that if I want to read the Vedas, I can go and read the Hindu Vedas. If I want to read the Gnostic Gospels, I can read those. If I want to read if I want to read the Tao Te Ching.
What is a DVD?
I'll have to show it. I'll have to get it for you. Yeah.
People listening to will want to.
Yeah, I'd have to get it. I don't have the name of it on the tip of my tongue. But the point is, this revelation from Source, has been given for particular people in particular places. Each time, someplace else, a mystic in a different location kind of really finds the truth, goodness, beauty. And so these different religions pop in these different places. But we've never been in this place where we can actually experience the depth of the traditions. We are experiencing a lot of the trees, and we find a lot of dead trees, it feels to people. So more and more people are defining themselves now as spiritual but not religious. They don't identify with the traditions. Kind of my hope is sometimes with folks is that I can open up to them that to dismiss the religions is to deprive yourself of your rightful inheritance from your brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and grandfathers who have gone before you, who struggled mightily to come to an esoteric, the underneath understanding. And through the religious traditions, if we follow into the depth of them, the esoteric, the inner, of any of the world's traditions, this was Wayne Teasdale's great gift to us, it can bring you deeply to what is the eternal wisdom. The Perennial Wisdom says 4 basic things. It says, and so to realize, wow, all these traditions, and if you follow any one of them deeply enough, they'll bring you to these realizations. Number 1, that everything you see, these mountains, the trees, Abigail, you and I, the rattlesnakes, everything in creation is a manifestation of an unnameable source. Number 2, as human beings, we have the capacity not just to know about that source, but to know it directly through a process of deep intuition that is beyond rational thinking and gnosis. Number 3, that we are dual-natured, that we have not only this human reality, which is real, not an illusion. So it's not that one is an illusion, but that we have 2 natures, the human, and then we have that spark of the divine, absolutely every person, every living being. And then finally, there's only one reason. The only reason that we're here is to come into that union with the indwelling divine. That's it. And to recognize that through billions of years of evolution and millions of human beings, that we have been offered this treasury of wisdom through each of the traditions is just mind-blowing to me, and that we have access to it now, like we never did before. So that's my love affair with the perennial wisdom, is this profound inheritance.
And thank you for sharing that passion. Yeah. And also tell us just a final question regarding love and how love, the radical transformation that can happen through love.
That's a great question. Some years ago, I should show you my love stones. I am a person that I need to practice these things. And so for many years, I've tried to practice love. One of the great teachers on love was St. Paul, out of the Christian scriptures. And Paul, in an illuminated state, really. So out of a state where he was completely consumed by love, he gave this teaching. And he said, love is kind. Love is patient. Love doesn't demand its own way. Now, this is called 1 Corinthians, and some people see it as, he's telling you what you're supposed to do. My take is, he was enlightened and living in love, and he said, when you're in love, how could you be anything but patient? You would be infinitely patient if you were actually in love. Mm-hmm. And you would be infinitely kind. And you would have no reason to demand your own way, and so on. And so some years ago, I thought, I'm just incapable of it. I remember being in my prayer room, this is 20 years ago, on my knees, crying, saying, I can't even love one human being. Could you just help me love just one human being? Really the person I was living with at the time, which is always the hardest, And so I made these stones called love stones, and I put those teachings into stones. So that each day I could pick one and say, what is it today? Love is not resentful. And so then I have to walk and practice love is not resentful today, and practice that. Again, to go back to all the world's traditions, that is at the heart of their teaching. The teaching is kindness and love. And that if you follow that path deeply and you do the work and wrestle with the ego and our woundedness and our brokenness and all the veils that veil the heart, the Sufis say practice is about clearing the rust from the heart so that it becomes a more and more beautiful reflection of the divine love. Every tradition tells us that that's where practice will bring you, is to love and compassion. And so whatever the path, 6.5 billion people, 6.5 billion paths to God. There's no one left out. There's no one left without a path. Because the divine's nature itself, we're told, is infinite mercy and compassion. So nobody's left out. And if we follow that path with a sincere heart, do our personal work, it will bring us to a love that is unconditional and is true compassion. This is one of the great joys of my work in spiritual direction. I sit with people. I'm a spiritual director. I sit with them in person, but I also have people in Europe and Australia. It's funny, and on Skype, and on the phone. And we just listen together for where is love moving? Where is spirit showing up? Where are you noticing spirit? What's arising? And helping people through spiritual direction to come more and more and more and more into alignment with that ultimate source, which is nothing. Its other name is love. So when we're acting out of that place, how can we harm? There's no other. And out of that place, this is the secret, or this is the ultimate teaching. There is no separation. This is the place. It's to come to the place where we not just have an idea or an intellectual grasp, but the true lived experience that there is no other, that there's only one, and it's right here. And so how could I possibly harm you? So really our future depends on this, that each person find their way. And the traditions have an enormous amount to offer us in giving us guidance and giving us tools, practices, deep wisdom about how to avoid the pitfalls, deep wisdom about how not to get pulled off by distraction. The traditions have this to offer us, to come deeply into this place where where we're not going to hurt our neighbor. This is what's required. This is the next great, unfolding of consciousness in humanity is to come into that lived experience of oneness, I believe.
Thank you so much, Janet, for this moment with you and to go all the way into this topic. All the way. I love it. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
What a delight.
It's my deep love. This is what I love more than anything is this source to help people connect. I don't care what their words are, I don't care what their language is, but that every human would know that they're not alone, that there is a way and a path. This is my great love to do. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about it.
Thank you for sharing it with us from all around the world to all everybody,
Yes,
anybody watching right now. Thank you.
And blessings. You're not alone in this path. You have a path. Listen to the heart. Yeah, and be happy, be well. May you be at peace. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering and all the causes of suffering. So, yeah.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, you're so
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Well, much love, my beautiful co-creators. And if you want to see more interviews, you can check juicylivingtour.com. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. We said bye. Yeah. You're cute. Yes, you're cute.
She's so quiet. She's a good girl.
You're a good girl. Thank you for being part of this. Yeah.